Stay connected, stay informed. 20 minutes of nonstop news continues on KOMO News 1000, FM 97.7.
Monday edition of the KOMO Afternoon News. Welcome aboard. Downtown Seattle, generally cloudy. A few breaks in the overcast. Current temperature now at 3:02 is 72 degrees.
I'm Elisa Jaffe with Rick Van Cise, and here's what's happening right now. The capital of Afghanistan fell in a matter of hours to the Taliban. Retired four-star General Barry McCaffrey of Seattle tells KOMO getting Americans and our allies out of the country will be difficult.
The American people, many of them will be crushed by it. The millions who fought in Afghanistan and Iraq, the Afghan people are in a terrible situation, which will get worse, not better.
McCaffrey is critical of Afghan military and civilian leaders. He says they should have better prepared for an American withdrawal. We'll hear more from General McCaffrey in about 10 minutes.
I'm Ryan Harris. Two Washington Democrats, U.S. Senator Maria Cantwell and Congressman Derek Kilmer, say the focus in Afghanistan right now should be on getting Americans out safely. But they also say there will be questions of military and intelligence leaders who indicated it would take much longer for the Taliban to retake control.
I think there was a mistake in the intelligence assessment, because clearly that's not what's transpired.
Cantwell and Kilmer also say we shouldn't abandon Afghanis who helped the U.S. war effort and that their offices are working on individual cases.
I'm Charlie Harger. As chaos continues in Afghanistan, prominent Washington state Republicans are drafting plans to bring Afghan refugees here. State House Minority Leader J.T. Wilcox says he's asked staffers to come up with a plan to bring allies and interpreters to Washington.
We want to send the message that you don't have to worry about partisan politics in this effort to take care of people that took care of us.
Wilcox says he will send those plans to the governor and federal government for their consideration.
I'm Jeff Pogel. Happening right now, the Seattle City Council is debating the prohibition of the use of less lethal weapons by Seattle police. The bill was sponsored by Councilwoman Lisa Herbold and is part of the council's ongoing efforts to reform the police department. But the bill doesn't go as far as some had hoped. After a federal court weighed in, the council amended the legislation to allow things like blast balls and pepper spray in limited circumstances.
T-Mobile saying this afternoon it's investigating a leak of its data after someone took into an offline forum offering to sell the personal information of cell phone users. T-Mobile says it has confirmed there was unauthorized access to some data, but it's still determining the scope of the breach and who was affected. Vice's motherboard reports someone was offering to sell personal data from more than 100 million people. T-Mobile hasn't said how many yet were affected. Still ahead.
A couple of priests walk into the health department. I'm Brian Calvert, and what they did for COVID was no joke.
KOMO News Time 3:04. Time for an update on traffic conditions from the Jubin Law Group Traffic Center. Here's Marina Rockinger.
We have slowdowns southbound 405 in Bellevue that are pretty tough from Northeast 8th to Newcastle. Southbound I-5 is heavy from Highway 18 through 5 down towards the Puyallup River. And northbound is also struggling from 38th up to the Puyallup River. Eastbound 512, that's a difficult one now from just after Steel Street out past Golden Given Road, and then tough again over towards the South Hill curve there. We are finally recovering westbound 16 from an earlier collision. Still going to be slow near the toll plaza. Next, KOMO traffic at 3:14.
This update on traffic sponsored by Beacon Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical. Call Beacon today and save $50 on all electrical work. Just call 1-800-FREAKIN and stop freaking. Call on Beacon. We call on Kristen Clark for a check on KOMO weather.
Tracking light showers by this afternoon, evening's commute, all from an incoming cold front. Yeah, the first that we've seen in a long time here, but the rain that falls will be very light, maybe barely enough to even wet the pavement in around Puget Sound. And if we were to see rain in Olympia, that would officially end the record dry streak there. Yeah, it's been since mid-June since we've seen any measurable rain in Olympia, but yes, this incoming cold front could end the dry streak. Now, the showers begin to stay confined to the Cascade Mountains on Tuesday. The lowlands dry out, but also cool down. Highs on Tuesday, the low 70s, the coolest day of the entire week. In the KOMO Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kristen Clark.
Downtown Seattle, we have cloudy skies and 72, but some of the rain that Kristen was talking about already has hit Grays Harbor County. Hoquiam now 64 degrees. You're in the middle of 20 minutes of nonstop news on KOMO at 3:06.
Seattle police are investigating a homicide at Gasworks Park. Officers were called to the park at about 4:30 this morning after witnesses heard shots fired. A short time later, they discovered a man dead from a gunshot wound. Investigators are now trying to figure out what led up to the shooting and why it happened.
Police in Tacoma, meantime, investigating several incidents following a violent night there. 2 people injured in 3 separate shootings. No one hurt in a drive-by on South 38th Street near South M. A short time later, a 19-year-old, though, was injured in a shooting involving 2 vehicles in the area of South D Street. Another shooting in the area of South Montgomery near South 64th injured a 34-year-old man.
An Ellensburg woman is credited with convincing the president nursing home should be harshly penalized for poor COVID-19 protocols. Maureen McKinney launched her One Woman campaign in July of last year after her husband and 15 others died from COVID complications in an Ellensburg nursing home. Regulators fined the facility only $13,000.
This is a problem in nursing homes across the board, across the country, in every state.
Last month, President Biden cited McKinney's case as he lifted the previous administration's limits on nursing facility fines.
The concept of wearing a mask to protect yourself from COVID has been attacked both politically and religiously, which is likely why a couple of Washington priests decided to add to the conversation. We have more on that now from KOMO's Brian Calvert.
By now, you've heard the story of a Tennessee pastor who a few weeks ago threatened to oust members if they came to church services wearing a mask. Whether you believe it should or shouldn't be, wearing face coverings remains an issue. And with more religious arguments against the practice, 2 Jesuit priests from Spokane wanted you to hear their perspective.
It is not accurate to think of science and religion in conflict with each other. They are hand in glove.
Father J.K. Adams of Gonzaga Prep is trying to reach out to those who are spiritual yet think faith conflicts with science. He says to the contrary, imagine, if you will, faith inspiring science and scientific discovery.
As Jesuits, we want to encourage everyone to take seriously all the data and all of the science.
And the fact he believes it's divinely inspired. Father Tom Lamanna agrees.
Where do fear and anxiety hold us back? And where does caution help us to move forward?
The pair teamed up for a special public service announcement that the Washington Department of Health has released online. Meditate on the message, and you might be left with a very famous pastoral parable. A man takes his boat out and the boat begins to sink. One boat comes by and the crew asks, "Can we help you?" The man on the sinking boat says, "No, God's got this." 2 more boats come by, 2 more refusals before the man drowns and finds himself at the pearly gates. "God, why didn't you save me?" The Almighty responds, "I sent you 3 boats."
Our hope is that we can move to being open and being healthy so that we can start to recover mentally, physically, spiritually.
Brian Calvert, KOMO News.
Realtors are getting pretty desperate. With so few homes on the market, some are resorting to phone calls asking home buyers if they'd like to sell. KOMO's Carlene Johnson reports.
With only a 14-day supply of homes in the market in Spokane, supply is not keeping up with demand. Stacy Overtomb is a Keller Williams realtor. She says buyers are frustrated, so she's doing all she can to find homes.
I will call and say, hey, I have buyers that are looking for a home in your area. Have you thought about selling in today's market?
Overtomb says new buyers often want to live in a specific neighborhood, so she'll call families who already live there. Jericho Meyer told KXOY she's been getting a lot of those calls and texts, but doesn't appreciate the approach.
My 14-year-old daughter, she got a text message asking to buy her house.
Overtomb says she'll call 1 to 200 numbers, typically finding only 1 or 2 people who actually might consider the idea of selling. Carlene Johnson, KOMO News.
Yeah, we're getting texts, we're getting phone calls. Bill, you're getting postcards. I mean, it's just everybody wants to buy our houses,
Rick,
right?
8.4 million, as is.
Sold! The Huskies cracked the top 20 in another college football preseason poll. Here's Bill with the Beacon Plumbing Sports Update.
How about Washington at number 20 in the Associated Press poll that's come out? They were 21 according to the coaches in USA Today. Alabama is everybody's pick to win the national championship again. Now, for the Dogs to be that good and compete for a Pac-12 title, they need to improve their run defense over last year, says the big tackle Taki Taimani.
He won't stop this year with us giving up a lot of yardages last year, but I think he's done a good job of forcing us to kind of focus on that, work on our gap schemes to stop all the inside runs and kind of lessen those yards and then become a better run-stop defense.
Huskies open their season at home September 4th against Montana. The longtime former voice of the Huskies, Bob Rondo, had a thrill of a lifetime yesterday. Yours truly was blessed to be there. In 15 minutes on KOMO News, an emotional and popular Longacres Mile winner at Emerald Downs. Plenty of former Seahawks are out playing golf today at Snoqualmie Ridge. Why? Well, this is the Boeing Classic Week. The Champions Tour event is coming back after last year canceled because of the pandemic. And the Mariners have the night off after they produced a 4-2 homestand. There's still 5.5 games back in the wild card. Open a big road trip in Texas tomorrow night. Sports at 10:40 after the hour. Bill Schwartz, KOMO News.
You and Rondo back in 15, huh?
Yeah, we will be.
All
This
right.
is a great story.
Okay, can't wait. Thanks, Bill. KOMO News Time, 3:12.
Lost in the noise surrounding the fall of Afghanistan was a massive earthquake that devastated Haiti Saturday, a magnitude 7.2 quake. ABC's Jim Ryan is monitoring the impact of that and spoke with KOMO's Taylor Van Cise.
Jim, the death toll just kept shooting up over the weekend.
Yeah, it really did. I think now it's nearly 1,300, could go beyond that, certainly as the search and rescue effort goes on. This massive earthquake was actually more powerful than the one in 2010 that killed about 250,000 people. Somehow the death toll has been lower in this one, but here comes a big storm, a potential tropical storm that's going to make the search and rescue even more difficult. The country's been dealing with infrastructure issues, and of course the assassination of the president just a few weeks ago. That has left an infrastructure issue and a leadership void that could complicate the effort to recover from this deadly earthquake.
What's the international response been specifically regarding aid and the United States aid?
Yeah, the U.S. is offering to send help, whatever help that it can get there. You also have a lot of private organizations or social service organizations, the American Red Cross, AmeriCares, the Mercy Corps, Save the Children. All these organizations now are mobilizing there. They're all soliciting not necessarily goods or blankets or things like this, but soliciting donations of cash so that they can make those purchases on the ground there to distribute to the victims of the earthquake.
With that stormy tropical weather headed toward Haiti, we know well from the building collapse in Surfside, Florida, what that can mean for rescue efforts at a disaster site.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it becomes much more treacherous. It's dangerous now working at all that collapsed debris and the rubble, the twisted rebar, and it's going to get more dangerous as this storm comes in. It lashes up the winds and creates new flooding potential, and certainly the rainwater is going to slick into everything, and that's sure to make things more complicated.
ABC's Jim Ryan with us on KOMO News. Jim, thank you.
And that's KOMO's Taylor Van Cise. It's 3:14 at KOMO News. And let's get an update now on our KOMO traffic. Do that for you every 10 minutes on the force from the Dubin Law Group Traffic Center. Here against Marina Rockinger.
Well, in Federal Way, we have some issues. Southbound I-5, the ramp from 320th, the collision is partially blocking that ramp from 320th to southbound I-5, and a collision that's also in the Gore Point under Enchanted Parkway. So things are getting pretty slow now in that area of Federal Way. In Gig Harbor, westbound 16 at Olympic, we did have a collision. It's on the shoulder, but it's pretty slow off and on between midspan of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge and that seam. All right, southbound I-5 is slow from Highway 18 down towards the Port of Tacoma Road. We're looking at slowdowns eastbound 512 from Steel Street to Golden Given Road. It's tough southbound 405 in Bellevue from 520 down to I-90. And in Marysville, we have a collision on 116th Street Northeast at State Avenue, so some eastbound slowing on 116th. Your next KOMO traffic at 3:24.
And the Puget Sound forecast in just a second. This update on traffic, sponsored by Ole Ortho, their entire team providing you with world-class surgery support from scheduling your appointment, pre-op planning to your recovery. Every step of the way, Ole Ortho has your back, your knee, your hip. You get it, oleortho.com. Your life in motion. Weather outlook, chilly tomorrow, relatively speaking. It'll be 72 or so around here. But compared to what we had over the weekend and late last week, wow, what a come down. Partly cloudy, though, tonight, and overnight lows in the 50s with a chance of rain this evening. Downtown Seattle now, it is 72.
Stay connected. Stay informed. The Northwest's only 24-hour news station. KOMO News 1000, FM 97.7.
With Elisa Jaffe, I'm Rick Van Cise. Our editor is Bill O'Neill.
There was never a good time to withdraw from Afghanistan. That's what we're hearing from President Biden today.
American troops cannot and should not be fighting in a war and dying in a war that Afghan forces are not willing to fight for themselves.
Military analyst and retired four-star General Barry McCaffrey joining us on the KOMO Newsline. We've got 6,000 troops going in. You're seeing some gut-wrenching scenes of these desperate Afghans clinging to transport planes. Are we doing enough?
First of all, I think the presentation by President Biden was solid. It made sense. It was objective. It was consistent with his past sayings. It was, however, an elective decision, and it resulted in a rapid withdrawal of U.S. forces, and that in turn had a cascading effect that resulted in the disaster we're watching on live TV. Having said that, I actually think President Biden is doing the right thing. So the American people, many of them will be crushed by it. The millions who fought in Afghanistan and Iraq, the Afghan people are in a terrible situation, which will get worse, not better. But I think the Biden presentation was solid.
How do we contain the possible terror threats? Has al-Qaeda changed since 2001? Are the branches more dangerous? How have our capabilities changed since then?
There's no question that terrorism continues to be a serious threat to the American people. They're trying to get at our aircraft to blow them up still. They're capable of mass mayhem. We've seen it in Europe, driving giant trucks through crowds of people. So the terrorism threat is a very troubling aspect of continuing life in America and Western Europe in particular. Having said that, we're now much better organized. I mean, the FBI, local law enforcement, the CIA, U.S. Special Operations missions, which are in 100 countries around the world, all have pretty much engaged with this threat and kept us from another 9/11. And so I don't believe that even if al-Qaeda starts to reconstitute itself in Afghanistan, that in a measurable way increases the threat to the American people. I think we can deal with it.
We hear now reports of the Taliban going door to door, knocking on the doors of journalists, knocking on the doors of women. Are there fears that these people will be beheaded because of how they helped the U.S. in the last 20 years?
Oh, I don't think there's any question, but there'll be retribution for those that the Taliban can get their hands on. Millions are now going to flee across the land frontiers to adjoining states. Some will get out. Some will be caught, be punished, probably lethally. The bigger problem is this giant country of 40 million hardworking people who actually did create a semi-modern state in the urban areas where there was opportunity for women, entrepreneurship, universities, hospitals, a legislature. I mean, the trappings of a modern state were starting to appear. That's likely to all disappear pretty rapidly, and women will return to a position in that society. Where I had an American female colonel on one of my trips into Afghanistan tell me that prior to the U.S. intervention, which resulted in the rejection of the Taliban, that women were viewed as less valuable than a donkey. And so I don't think we ought to be terribly optimistic about the nightmare that's going to fall on women in Afghanistan.
General Barry McCaffrey.
KOMO News Time now 3:20. Get an update on your KOMO Propel Insurance Money news. Here's Jim Chesko.
It's been revealed that Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin has sued the federal government over NASA's decision to award a sole contract to Elon Musk's SpaceX to develop a moon lander for the agency. That's the latest salvo in the multi-billion-dollar lunar lander program. Blue Origin claims the suit's an attempt to remedy the flaws in the acquisition process found in NASA's human landing system. Meanwhile, word today that a one-time key advisor to Bezos is leaving Amazon. Insider reports that Wei Gao, currently vice president of grocery tech and supply chain, but formerly a shadow advisor to Bezos from early 2018 to 2020, will depart the e-commerce giant in mid-September. She's been at Amazon for 16 years. No word on her next job. A mostly higher finish for U.S. stocks today. Both the S&P 500 and Dow Industrials up again and earning more new fresh closing highs. That's Your Money Now. I'm Jim Chesko, KOMO News.
Get your money news on KOMO at 20 and 50 past every hour. Latest on traffic and another look at this changing weather scenario next.
KOMO Radio News. Stay connected, stay informed, and check back 2, 3, 4 times a day for the news that affects you. Plus traffic and weather every 10 minutes on the 4s. The Northwest News Station. This is KOMO News. You've